What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. This is our reaction show where we're going to break down everything that we saw as the Hounds unfortunately lost 2-0 to Louisville City. I am Mike Sparks. Joining me is Steve Mattias and Justin Ashcraft. Gentlemen, we're going to try to make this pleasant regardless of the outcome. Justin, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Let me tell you about my soccer day yesterday. Let me start there.
Yeah.
My teams played 3 games, scored 1 goal, and got outscored I think it was 11-1, 12-1. So that's the way my soccer day went on Saturday. Other than that, it's been a good weekend. We got to yesterday. Some friends of ours were doing one of those late summer, hey, we're gonna close the pool soon, but tomorrow looks like a nice day. Anybody want to come over and swim? And so we went swimming a good portion of yesterday afternoon, which was fun. And so good overall weekend.
Nice. Steve?
Justin has had a much better weekend than I have had. I don't know if you can hear it, but I am still congested. Been dealing with the flu all weekend. So the only good thing about this weekend is I have slept a lot. Not much else to say. Being sick sucks.
Also sounds like Rory is shaking himself off right next to you.
Oh, he's bored out of his mind. He has just been pestering me for attention and walks, and I'm like, I don't have the energy for it, bud.
Yeah.
So we'll say hi.
Yeah. There's Rory for those of you who are watching. Yeah. He's actually looking at the camera. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. As I mentioned, we are live, so everybody who is joining us live, feel free to leave comments, questions in the chat. We will oftentimes discuss those and share those. And with obviously the results of the game not being the greatest, we're looking for anything else to talk about. So do feel free to share. Let's just get right into it, guys. Let's do Hey Sir.
And now, Hey Sir, 1 minute reactions with Laura Ellen.
The first half, I thought we played well the first half, and then the second half, we played not as well. Oh gosh, I'm just bummed, right? I know they've kind of been saying this on the show, but I feel like as I was watching the game, I was overcome by, we used to have so much hope for this team. We used to have so much energy and enthusiasm of, okay, the pieces are finally coming together, and they're just not coming together anymore. And I can't put my finger on why. And it's just like, oh gosh, it sucks, right? And it's kind of boring to watch, and I'm going to keep watching, but anyway, let's go Hounds.
This has been Hey Sir, 1 minute reactions with Laura Ellen.
So I guess before we get into this game, one thing to note, Augie was named the USL Player of the Week off of his 2-goal performance last weekend. So kudos to him for that. Didn't follow it up with anything that was too stellar, but here we are. I think going into this game, we were not optimistic about the outcome. With that in mind, Justin, as the game drew to a close and we lost 2-0, were you disappointed, or was it kind of what you were anticipating? So it's just like, it's Louisville. That's what it is. How did you feel?
I was definitely disappointed. I think there was a little bit of both. I was disappointed, but I also was like, all right, it's Louisville, and I don't know what to say about that. But I think coming out of halftime, the broadcasters mentioned something to the effect of the Riverhounds had 33 final third entries that resulted in a total of 6 shots in the first half of the game. And I'm like, well, that's how you lose a game. So
wasn't it worse than that? Wasn't it 6 touches in the box? Not even shots?
It might have been 6 touches in the box. It was something like that. And so we were a good pass away from having some opportunities in this game, and just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah. Steve, were you disappointed?
Yeah. I mean, and to follow up with what Justin's saying is we've been lacking clinical finishing the entire season. I mean, maybe the entire past 2 seasons. And the only guy that seems like he's likely to get on the end of things lately is Augie. And unfortunately, he's been inconsistent with his clinical finishing throughout the season. And so last week was a great boost, but playing a much better defense, just like they were shutting him down, and he had his chances, but he also didn't have a lot of help. And I think the other thing that's so disappointing is the number of times that we put balls right on the top of the 6-yard box. And there's just, again, something we've talked about throughout the season. Nobody there, just balls to no one going right through the box, out of bounds on the other side. It happened multiple times. And so it's just like, I don't get what Bob expects to happen when you're not allowing players to go forward. You have to put points on the board at this point in the season. You have to show that you can beat teams that are good, that you can break those teams down. And we didn't do that last night.
Yeah. The number of times that we would just sort of recycle the ball backwards, and then you go left to right and left to right or right to left. And it's very slow. It's very predictable. Really in Bob's entire tenure, we have lacked that player that can sort of break down a team whenever they decide to sit in. And Louisville came in fully content to sit in, made some changes at halftime, got a goal shortly after halftime off of a set piece play, off of a corner kick. And then their second goal was just, we got out hustled and shut off. And those are the type of mistakes that you would hope not to see at this point in the season.
Yeah.
The commenters or the guys in the box were basically saying that they were talking to Bob, and he was saying, we need to learn from each other still, and we need to get better. And I'm like, we're like 2/3 of the way through the season, if not more. Like, what else are you hoping to learn when you can't score? It's just. But
that's something Bob has said every single season. And up till the end of the season, there's always more room to develop. And while there's a technicality that is true to that, at some point you have to say, if we're waiting till the end of the final third of the season to try to pull things together and be at our best, then something's amiss, right? You need to be hitting that stride much sooner. And I think it's a symptom of you're testing out players in the last preseason game of the preseason to see if you're going to sign them or not giving your guys that you expect to go into the season playing 3-4 games in preseason together. You're still trying to put together your team at the end of preseason and through the first few weeks of the season. Of course, it's going to take time. It's not working. And that's where I get so frustrated with this mindset that, it was absurd when they played the new promo for the new stadium, and both him and Tuffy are sitting there talking about like wanting to win and get better, and we need to be bigger to do that. And it's like, but you're not doing the things now that you need to be successful at this level, at a level that is actually pushing us beyond where we've been stagnant for the past 7 seasons. And so why do I think that you're going to be able to do that going forward? It's just not enough at this point for me.
Yeah.
Justin, I had a lot of time to think about this with doing nothing else.
Justin, give me another takeaway.
Yeah, I think to Reed's point, the comment you threw on the screen a minute ago, we had so many chances in this first half to put. We look like the better team most of the first half, and I watch it and I go, man, it is just one. It was just one good pass away from getting on the score sheet. And I think, to your point about clinical finishing, Steve, yes, absolutely, we needed clinical finishing. Last night was not clinical finishing, it was clinical passing. And there was just no the last pass just never came. It was like we got in good position over and over and over and over again. And it was like, all right, swing a ball in the box, but there was nothing. We just weren't brave enough to do it. It was like, all right, we got to wait for, the high percentage shot that Bob always talks about. Well, I'm sorry, against Louisville, you're not going to get it. So you've got to, at some point, you've got to be brave enough to take on the kind of weird shot. And that's how Louisville got their first goal. Weird little set piece play, ball slips through, somebody stops it and then kind of redirects it after Dick's already on the ground, and that's how you get a goal. It was weird. It wasn't clean. It wasn't exactly the way it was supposed to be. You could talk about it being potentially offsides, whatever. It just doesn't matter. But it was the fact that it was on frame. There were bodies in the way, and it happened to get through and get in the goal. And I think that's what I'd like to see the Hounds do more often, is put the ball on frame somewhere or in dangerous areas.
And granted, you're right. It was off a corner kick, but it's because they have the guys there in the space to fight for things when they do drop, right? And you're not always going to get those balls to drop on a corner kick, right? But it looked like the Hounds were completely uninterested in trying to do anything like that when they had their corner kicks. And we had our chances on corner kicks throughout the night, but it was just like everything was trying to flick it on further or put it back up in the air instead of just trying to get it on goal or get it down and see what happens, right? And sure, again, granted a corner kick, but men in the box. And as I said earlier, the number of times that the Hounds had good chances to do something with a cross, with a touch in the box, and there's just no support. That it looked like we were afraid to go out and actually open the game up by scoring first in the first half. What's wild to me is that this second half, as poor as the Hounds looked, might, I'd have to go back and check, but might be the most shot heavy half the Hounds have played all season. They took 11 shots. When have we've seen games where they haven't taken 11 shots, and they took 11 in the second half last night, but couldn't do anything with that.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. We've talked a lot about the fact that Louisville locked up a playoff spot. It feels like 3 or 4 weeks ago. They're racing for the top of the league with the Battery. We seem mired in the 6th, 7th spot. We've been in that kind of position for the past few weeks. There's still a chance that we could get a home playoff spot, but more likely than not, we're not going to. How much of this game and how much of how you feel about this game is actually in relation to Louisville just being really good versus us not playing to the potential that we know that we have, but we haven't really seen it all this season?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is actually a really great question because it does kind of like what I would ask myself as I think through that question, what potential have I seen? And to answer that question, I go back to like how we played against Charleston. There's a couple games along the season that I go, hey, those were pretty good games. But none of them are playoff. It's bad when you say, hey, the best game we played all season long, we lost 2-1, 2-0. And so it's like, it doesn't feel good. And so I feel like part of the way I feel about this game is in context of, like Steve said, in the last 7 years, we've kind of been stagnant. Every season over the last 7 has ended up almost exactly the same. And so I just feel like, all right, here we go again. Like we're gonna make the playoffs. We're gonna lose in the first round. See you next year. And it feels a little disheartening as a fan, I think.
Yeah.
And to continue those really good thoughts from Justin, like even if we do make it through the first round of the playoffs, it's like, oh, okay, so we're going to get knocked out by this other team in the second round, right? Like there's nothing that I'm seeing in the play on the field and the tactics that makes me think that Bob is making decisions that puts this team in a position where they can actually beat teams when it counts. And so in this game, is a loss to Louisville the end of the world? No. But is a game where you have your chances in a game where you're just not doing the things you need to do encouraging at this stage of the season? I don't think it is, right? And that's more of what it is. If we had come out and Louisville had gotten a couple of goals that were just absolutely ridiculous and we defended well and we scored one that was really good and Lass had made 4 great saves, I'd feel a lot different, right? Like that's what I expect to see from a team like Louisville, scoring really good goals, making really good defensive and goalkeeping plays. And if you lose in a game like that where you play well, great, right? Like you move on, you go forward. But when you just don't really put them under much pressure, regardless of how many times you shoot, I don't feel like we were really that dangerous, except for a couple of shots that Augie had, and he just couldn't get them on frame easily, right? Like he had that one where he did a 180 turn and just high left. A good chance, just not good enough.
Yeah. I think in games like this in particular, you're looking for difference makers. So much of the game is not even the full team. It's sort of the individual battles. And if you can win your individual battles more than the guy you're up against, then you're putting yourself in a pretty good position. I can't say with any certainty right now, and feel free to disagree with me, guys, that we have any players on this team that I feel are difference makers. I feel like last year, Etu was a difference maker. Etu would race into the box. He'd make stuff happen, and he'd either get brought down or he was outpacing guys in ways that it was trouble. When Berton came in last season, he was a difference maker. Last night, he seemed completely disinterested to me. Like there were times he would get the ball and he would either just shoot it wildly or he'd play it into space and nobody was there. And then he would just kind of complain about it. It just doesn't feel to me like, aside from somebody like a Danny Griffin, who at this point we sit so far back that the difference that he's making has little impact on the offense. I love Robbie, but like Robbie isn't that, gonna set the world on fire. He's gonna grind out the hard yards. He's gonna get deep. He's gonna sometimes make stuff happen, but you can't count on him to always win those individual battles in the way that I think you kind of need players to do. And it's just, it's sort of echoing what you guys have said. It's kind of stagnant. It's kind of boring. It's predictable. So
I think I fully agree with what you're saying, Mike. And I think a lot of that, as I reflect on it, and I had this thought last night, that it's like these players as a group are brought in and then developed and then stick around, or for the time they're here, are taught to play a really rigorous system that does not reward creativity. And that's frustrating because soccer is a game where creativity is what makes it the beautiful game. And I just had the thought, like, we are sitting there and we watched it on that first goal. Sure, we've got a couple of big defenders in the box, but they've got 3 times as many, okay, it's probably only 2 times as many big guys in the box that we can't mark in the same way, that are able to do a variety of different things at their disposal, rather than just doing the pass the ball around in the final or in the defensive third, in the middle third, and try to find that high percentage shot. There's no creativity. I mean, I look at it as I watched the Chelsea game yesterday, and Garnacho came in and made an excellent play for the second goal, right? It's because he was given the freedom to make decisions and do what he can do well. I don't see that, and I don't think Bob wants that, and that's the problem.
it's the Jack Grealish at Aston Villa and Everton versus the Jack Grealish at Manchester City.
Right.
Like you're forced into a system, and then when you're given the freedom to actually play, then you're like, wow, this is a really great player. Yep. Justin, are we getting do you feel the same way, or are we kind of off base here?
Yeah, no, I feel exactly the same way. And I had the same kind of thoughts last night, even just looking at our bench and thinking about what the 2 or 3 goals that Jorge Garcia has scored this year. And like, where's he been?
Yeah.
Where's he been? Yeah. And it's like, okay, but he put a fantastic one in Philly. He scored a fantastic one in Philly, scored a fantastic one it was at Loudon at the beginning of the season. And I like, all right, so, and then at the end of the game, we're throwing Borgi and Larson for the whole first half of the season. Where's this guy? And so I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I don't know how you overcome that. And I think to me, the first step in, so many times it's like the first step in figuring out a problem is just admitting you have one. And I think for the Hounds, it's like, all right, let's just admit we're a mid-table team, and we're going to fight for a playoff spot right now. And that's just the reality. And then you can get somewhat excited about the games in some way. But I think the problem is from every level of the organization, we're told we're thinking about a championship. We want to win a championship. We want to do these things. We feel like we're good enough to do it. We build in the stadium because we want to win a championship and we want to continue high-level professional sports here in Pittsburgh. And we hear this over and over and over and again. And so you that comes with a level of expectation then to be like, all right, cool. Show us how you do it then.
Mhm.
And right now it's just, that's not happening. And so I think it's like, in some way it's like, all right, cool. We've got a problem. The problem is we're not good enough to be at the top of the table. So then you got to start backtracking and be like, all right, what do we need to do? Do we need different players? Do we need more creative players? Do we need a new coach? Do we need a new technical director? Do we need, a GM who is doing different things? Do we need, I don't know. What do you need? But that'll help you actually diagnose the problem. But until you can say you have one, you're never going to actually diagnose it.
And I'll paraphrase what you said directly to Tuffy. As a businessman, Tuffy, you need to do a root cause analysis. Just go and do it. You're not doing anything. You're not making changes. You're letting Bob make the decisions with all the players instead of saying that, you know what, this hasn't worked beyond the first round of the playoffs for the past 7 years. That's not getting us towards that goal. So how do we reevaluate what we want? Does that include Bob? Does that not include Bob? Personally, I don't think it should include Bob. But Tuffy, you're the owner. Go make those decisions, but make decisions.
Yeah. Let's do Mondo's moment before we pick our top three.
It's time for Mondo's moment, the top moment of the game from the Mondalorian.
This week's Riverhounds match against Louisville City provides us with a pair of Mondo moments. The first comes throughout the match, as Pittsburgh cosplayers for a cause were at the stadium, and they were just a fantastic group of people. Next up, at halftime, there was the Rick Walsh lookalike contest, which the Mondo himself entered. While initial thoughts were that the Mondo was a shoo-in for the victory, a small foundling stole the show and took the victory. This is the way. Back to you guys.
This has been Mondo's moment. Go Hounds.
Thanks, Mondo. I have all sorts of questions about the lookalike contest because I was not there, but we'll have to ask Mondo to clear that up.
Oh, jeez.
Guys, any other kind of final thoughts before we pick a top three in this one? Other than, do we have to pick a top three? Because
Oh boy.
I think the reality that I keep bringing myself back to is like Louisville's a really good team, and it's a thing where winning breeds winning, right? And that's what it is for Louisville. It's for years and years and years. They've been winning and they'll continue to win. And what that does is the players that come in to their organization go, all right, if I'm going to go there, if I'm going to sign for Louisville, I've got to figure out how to win. Otherwise, I'm not going to be there very long. And so I think there's a clear culture difference between what's happening in Louisville and what's happening in Pittsburgh. And I don't know all the reasons for that. I'm not going to pretend like I'm sitting behind Tuffy's desk and trying to figure out what the reasons for that is, or Bob's desk, or anybody else's desk at the Riverhounds organization. But I look at it and go, it seems like to me, at least, that there's a clear culture difference between what's happening in that organization and what's happening in Pittsburgh. And I think, and that's not exclusive to the men's side of the organization. I mean, I think even for racing, like their first couple of years in NWSL weren't great, but they've figured it out now, and they're on a better trajectory this season than they have been. And so I think you've got to figure out when things are not going well, you got to figure out, all right, what is going wrong, and you got to actually do the work to fix it. And that to me is just, it's clear the culture difference on the two teams. And I think there's the other thing that I would say just from this game is with one, I was on the show 2 weeks ago and I talked about halftime subs. Why would you not use a sub? Because it's a free sub window and you can get fresh legs on the field, and look what Louisville did, and look how they tore us apart in the second half and made it look easy in the second half. So that's number one. But then number two, the level of those subs, and a lot of the guys who subbed onto the field are starting for half the teams in this league, but they would rather go sit the bench or be a sub in Louisville. Why? Because of a winning culture that exists in Louisville, that some of these players are just like, yeah, I could go start for the Miami, but I'd rather go sit and not get quite as many minutes, but be a part of a winning organization in Louisville.
Yep.
Yeah. Well said. Let's pick our top 3. Steve, give me a player.
Can I say Jackson Walty because he didn't have a chance to mess up?
Jackson Walty, who apparently was on the injury report last night.
Which now we know, finally.
Yeah, finally. He was 2 weeks without it. Yeah.
I mean, the only player I can come up with that I felt like was playing hard, doing what he needs to do throughout the game is Mertz.
Justin?
Yes.
We haven't been in a position where we've only picked like one player before, but literally Mertz was the only one that really came to mind for me too. Justin, I don't know how you feel.
No, there was what I was gonna say was there was like, the cool like montage that the USL does at the beginning of the games, the pixelated images and all that kind of stuff that they do. There was a really cool one of Mertz and DG, like, celebrating a goal or something. They both had huge smiles on their faces that, and both Laurel and I were like, that's a really cool picture. I don't know where they found it. I can't think if I've seen that one before, but it was a really great image of them celebrating. And same for me. I think there's never a time that I watch either Robbie or Danny Griffin and go, they're not trying, and I think they make their mistakes at times. Both of them do. But I think there was, again, last night for DG, there wasn't a moment in the game that I was like, oh, you lost your guy there. And that's what caused the, I think he may have been a part of the ball bumbling around at midfield when, Louisville scored the second goal. But again, you can't control where the ball bounces all the time. And so mine would be DG just because I like effort and I like trying and I don't ever feel like DG doesn't try.
I don't disagree with that. Reed put in the chat Barnes was frustrating them, I thought. I think Barnes is probably a good shout for the third one.
That would have been mine if we didn't come up with another.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. Do we do it in that order? Mertz, Griffin, Barnes? Or do you guys have a different order in mind? I know, this is like pulling teeth. Like going once, twice.
Can we just give them all 1 point?
I think I would give Barnes a slight edge over Griffin. Just because I agree with Justin's evaluation of Griffin. But I think Barnes actually did some things that gave us some chances, right? Like he was involved in some of those plays that we needed that next pass on, but he got us to that point a little more frequently.
Okay. Agreed. So that's our order then. We're going to go Mertz with 3 points, Barnes with 2, Griffin with 1. That is what we think. And Reed, thank you again for the contribution. Let us know what you think. Guys, let's look at the Eastern standings as a result of the loss, which, okay, good. I was like, did I upload it? I did upload it. Okay. So after last night's game, we're now sitting on 31 points, firmly in 7th place. Directly beneath us is Rhode Island with 27 points. So we've got a nice little 4-point gap on Rhode Island. So at least for another week, we are going to be comfortably in 7th or higher. Above us is Detroit with 32. So we're only 1 point out of 6th place. And we are currently 4 points out of 5th place against the team that we're playing this week, which is Hartford. Hartford, who we'll talk about here in a second. Louisville widened their gap against the Battery. They are now with 57 points at the top of the table. The Battery have 51. So barring some crazy fall off, it looks like it's going to be Louisville at 1, Charleston at 2, which feels ridiculous to say with still like 6 or 7 games left. But that's kind of the way that the season has been going. Guys, any kind of surprises looking at the table or any thoughts about where we're at this moment and whether or not you think we got a good shot of going up or down? Justin, just thoughts in general.
I am probably as least confident as I have been all season about us even making the playoffs this year. And I don't want to manifest that into reality, of course. But I just keep looking at it. I'm like, it's still only a 5-point gap. And yes, it's like two, between Rhode Island and Indy, two of them have to overcome that gap, and they both have to get enough points to get in front of us. But I just keep it. Listen, none of the three of our teams, none of those three teams between Pittsburgh, Rhode Island, and Indy are on good form whatsoever. But I think the point is, because none of them are good form, if any of them can get on a run and start winning some games here and there, what's to say that they couldn't, overcome that difference? And so I think it's to me, you guys know I'm very wary of calling things must-win games. This weekend feels just about there. And not because we won't make the playoffs if we don't win, but like if you lose and in Rhode Island, Indy pull off wins, all of a sudden you're looking at a real scary situation.
To your point, Justin, yes, Rhode Island and Indy are beneath us, but if you look at the last 5 games, we've actually picked up the least number of points out of those 3 teams. Indy has picked up 6 points. Rhode Island has picked up 7. We have picked up 4. So, yes, we're in a better position right now, but it's kind of like the battle of the worst at this point in terms of getting into those last few playoff spots. So anything is possible at this point, unfortunately. Steve, anything else to add to that?
No, I mean, I was going to bring up that recent run of form as well. I think I brought that up last week, or I was thinking about it last week. And the only thing that I think kept us in a decent position this week is that Rhode Island beat Indy, didn't they? Yeah, Rhode Island beat Indy this weekend, right? And so we're looking at it like, if that game turns out differently, it's a draw. Okay, things are even a little tighter between the two of them. And does that really matter? I don't know. But if we're only scoring a point or less per game for the next 6 games, that makes me really concerned.
And I mean, to Justin's point, this game this weekend is going to be against Hartford. Hartford, who, in the past we've called Fraudford, they still could fall off. But in the past 5 games, they have 12 points to our 4. So, this is not a Hartford team that is just going to kind of roll over and take it. We will be in Hartford on Saturday, 7 p.m. In addition to sort of being on the run of form, they've also signed the 2021 Player of the Year, Haji Berry. So at this point, I'd say going into this game, we are the underdogs, right? There's no way around it. Justin, realistically, how do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, I mean, you look at that and Hartford has picked up 12 out of the last 5. Well, Louisville has picked up 13 out of the last 5, and so they're not really on any different of a streak than what Louisville's on. And so I struggle to see how we win this game, and it sucks because I want to be hopeful. I want to walk into this game and go, yeah, I'm excited to watch, and I'm excited to, but it's on the road. It's in Hartford. We haven't done well there the last couple of seasons. I don't see us picking up anything there.
And Hartford,
it's hard to prove why.
Yeah. And Hartford is not the pushover they used to be. I mean, they are towards the bottom of the league in goals conceded. They're sitting at 18th with 27. Tied with Charleston. Rhode Island and Pittsburgh are the only 2 teams that I think are the aberration in that list down to the bottom that are not teams that are looking really good, because you've got Louisville, Sacramento, you've got Tulsa, right? Teams that are at the tops of their divisions, and then somehow us and Rhode Island, who are hoping to eke into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Hartford's defense is a lot better than what we've seen in the past. I don't expect them to just give up goals like they have.
Let me flip my comment a little bit positive though. If you could figure out how to get on a run of form, and I think the last year's Hounds team showed us that you can, towards the end of the season, you can figure out how to get on a run of form. If you can figure out how to run a form, you can flip things really quickly, because you think about the standings again. You think about Hartford, having gotten 12 out of their last 5. You think about Detroit having gotten 8 out of their last 5, and a couple weeks ago they were sitting below us. Well, we only got 4 out of our last 5. 4 points out of our last 5 games. They got 12 and 8, and now look at where the standings are. And so I think for the hopeful side of me, it's like, all right, well, we're only 5 points behind North Carolina, and if we can get on a reform, and those teams above us lose a couple of games or draw a couple of games, all of a sudden you're in not as bad of a situation as you were. And so if your win 2 weeks ago is a good indication, which I think we indicated on the show it could be, if that was a good indication, and then you lose the best team in league, who probably not many one team has beaten all season long, and then you turn that into a run of form over your next 4 games, all of a sudden we're looking at a very different situation. So I don't want to get too depressing, like, man, we're out of the playoffs all of a sudden, but I just think run of form at this point in the season, with the table as tight as it is, can determine a lot. And so if Indy and Rhode Island get on run of form and we don't, all of a sudden we're going to be outside the playoff line looking in. If we get on a run of form and the teams in front of us don't, then all of a sudden we're again, 2 or 3 weeks from now talking about a top 4 spot in a home playoff game. And so I just think it matters at this point in the season, like what you do, and things can change. Things can still change quickly. But that being said, there's not many games left, so you got to do it fast, whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's 6 games left, and if you look at the schedule, it actually is pretty favorable to the Hounds if we can show up and beat the teams that we should be beating. Sure, we've got Hartford, and then we end the season with Phoenix here. Yeah, Phoenix is here. Those are the only 2 current playoff teams that we face as of today in those next 6 games. We've got Vegas, Miami, Indy, and Monterey. Indy is the only of those teams that looks like they're actually pushing for a legitimate playoff spot. I mean, one of those West Coast teams might sneak in because the West is just wild, but that has to give you hopefully some hope. But you've got to go out and you've got to beat those teams then, right? Like, you've got to turn that opportunity into a result.
Justin, you heroically turned this around. Now give me a score prediction for this weekend.
You bring this back.
I still think we lose 2-1.
Steve?
Same.
Yeah. I'll be like, I don't want to say I'll be happy if we score, but like, I still feel like these guys, the lack of scoring, it's not as bad as last season where it was an 8-game stretch, but the fact that we still have gone all season and not had a single game where we've scored more than 2 goals, like, that's sitting in the guys' minds too. Mm-hmm. Like, they've got to know that they have the ability to score at will, and they need to do it. So, yeah. Like I said, game Saturday, 7 p.m. in Hartford. So make sure that you're checking out the game, you're supporting the guys. Let us know your thoughts as we head through the week. Guys, let's talk a little bit about non-Hound stuff. Not too much time.
Hi, this is Ryan Reynolds. And no, this is not a Mint Mobile ad. It's the non-Hound soccer topic of the week.
So there wasn't anything like crazy that happened this week, but we did just come out of an international break. So my question for you guys is, in a world where there's so much focus on club teams, there's so much focus on the money that goes into club teams and the sponsorship for club teams, do national teams still matter? Like, I did not watch a single U.S. game. I know, some of the European players that I follow, I know what teams they play for. I know that they did fine, whatever. But more or less for me, the international break is just a hope that nobody gets hurt. And I know that like every 4 years, the World Cup comes around or you have some sort of tournament. But even that, it feels to me like it's lost just a little bit of its luster. But I know this could be a very personal thing. So I'm just curious where you guys stand on sort of national teams and where they live in your mind in terms of soccer. Steve, I'll start with you.
For me, I don't really care anymore, right? Like the fun of the U.S. men's national team when I was growing up in my early 20s and whatnot, right? Like they were fun. Did I think that they were ever going to win a World Cup? No, but did I think that they were going to do some things like knock out Spain or Belgium in knockout rounds? Yeah, we saw those things happen, right? Like those were fun games to watch. I don't have hope that that'll happen again, but I also recognize that part of that is that it's just not the culture that it matters in the US. And so for me, no, it doesn't matter. Do I think it matters globally? I think 100% it matters. And there's a lot of national pride in the rest of the world for the national teams that we don't have.
Justin, where does it sort of live in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question because I think for the U.S. Soccer Federation has showed they don't really care about the national team. So why should we care as fans? Why should we care? You know what is happening on our national team level. I think that's so different from the rest of the world. You know, I remember the feeling coming out of the last World Cup. Who is going to be the England manager? You know, so many people. Who is going to be? Does Grealish get selected? Does, you know, all these questions kept coming up in people's minds. And then when Southgate, you know, like people were heated on Southgate and his feelings and his, you know, the players that he picks and what generation of players he picks, and does he still bring in, you know, guys like Kane and it's just so interesting because I think in the U.S. we just expect nothing. We have no expectations, and that even in the CONCACAF level, that just feels so. It's such an aberration to what is happening. You know, Mexico's been through how many coaches in the last 5, 6, 7 years because they just keep, you know, it's like they have a bad run over a couple international breaks and it's like, oh, we got to switch coaches. We got to figure out something new. You know, like it seems like Canada has figured out their coaching situation now and is in a good spot. And it's just like, all right, you know, we thought we had it with Pochettino and who knows, maybe everything will come together before the World Cup, you know, next year. But I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, we just expect to lose at this point. So why watch?
Steve, what's a good result for you in this upcoming World Cup for US? Is it just getting out of the group? Like, is that a victory?
2 knockout wins.
So out of the group and then 2 knockout wins would be a good World Cup. Wow. Okay.
With the expanded format, you can't just win one in the knockouts. You've got to push yourself a little further up.
Justin, you're nodding like you agree.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And that's what somebody commented online about, oh, I can't wait till U.S. men get grouped in the World Cup. They're not going to get grouped in the World Cup. The field's too big for them to get grouped in the World Cup. There's not going to be that's the problem with the expanded field. I don't inherently disagree with the expanded field, but the problem with the expanded field is it kind of gets rid of the group of death because there's all those teams are now spread out across more groups, and so it's like, well, okay, the group of death isn't going to be as real. There's still going to be one. Everyone's still going to say that, but like, it's not going to be as real as it could have been in previous World Cups. And so I think the U.S. is going to get out of their group. It matters what they do then. And yes, they sometimes if they can somehow win their group, then they all of a sudden beat, you know, some team. But it's like, all right, I want to see us beat the Belgium. You know, I want to see us beat the Netherlands. You know, I want to see us beat Spain. I want to see us beat some of these teams. You know, and there's some major teams who have been on rough ground over the past couple of years that I think Italy is beatable. I think Spain is probably beatable. And so there's some teams that are going through some transition periods that I think are beatable. And it's just, can the U.S. actually do it?
Are either of you guys going to try to get tickets and go?
No.
That was quick. I'm with you.
There's a couple of there's a couple feelings I have on that. One is I told her, I was like, we should at least put our name in the lottery system. Like, who knows if we get chosen, like it'd be cool if a game is in Philly. Like, I'm not gonna be the guy who's like, all right, let me go to Dallas to watch a US game, you know, to catch a specific US game. But like, you know, if a cool matchup's happening in Philly, like, why not? Why not buy the cheapest tickets and just, man, if the matchup isn't what you want it to be, then you sell the tickets. They'll sell. You'll be fine. If it is a cool matchup, then cool. Go out and be a part of the World Cup. I think our thing is we are waiting until the 2030 World Cup, and we want to go to Argentina to catch some games there. So I think that's where we're going to save our money for.
Yeah. I remember, was it 98 the last time it was here? My dad and I drove to the Meadowlands to see.
Wasn't it?
Maybe it was 94. Yeah. So it was 94. So me and my dad, we drove to the Meadowlands to see in Jersey. To your point, it wasn't USA. It was like whoever you can get. It ended up being Germany with Jurgen Klinsmann. And I completely forget who else they played. But like, I'll never forget that. It was a cool experience at a time where like you couldn't go watch soccer in person. There wasn't any soccer to see in person. So it was just kind of a neat experience. I know that like my guys were talking about we should try to get tickets, and their friends were saying we should try to get tickets. And that's kind of like waned a little bit as we get closer, but who knows? Maybe we'll try to get some tickets and get to a game. But
if you get them on the ground level, like they'll be fine. Like if you get them on the, when they first go on sale, all that kind of stuff, you buy them from the official, they'll be fine in price wise. And I know they're doing this dynamic pricing, and they'll do the, it's like the Spain games or the Germany games or whatever. Those are not going to be cheap. But like if you happen to catch a group game that's like, Cameroon versus Fiji, or something, right, it could be fun to still go and watch and, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we'll see. If you're interested or if you're planning on getting tickets, let us know. Could be a fun conversation to have, especially after it's all over. Otherwise, guys, I don't think there's anything else to talk about on this one. Do you guys have anything else you want to share?
Nope.
Hopefully the guys can go and get 3 points this weekend against Hartford. It's going to be a massive sort of 6-point swing. Hopefully sort of start Hartford's run and start one for us. So best of luck to the guys out there as they make the trip. Otherwise, like I said, thanks to everybody for watching and listening. We do appreciate it. Make sure that you leave a comment or any sort of feedback is welcome. You can get us at mongols3@gmail.com. We are also over on Blue Sky as Mongols. You can also leave comments on YouTube, and we do read and respond to everyone there as well. So we do really appreciate it. Otherwise, thanks, everybody. We will be back with more Hounds content for you very, very soon.
See ya.